I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, joined by my buddy Butch RosenBalm and my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to discuss the movie Re-Animator and the movie From Beyond. Guys, when did you first see these two movies? I gotta ask. Butch?
Uh, Mid late 80s video store rental. I believe I saw Re-Animator first and was blown away. From Beyond wasn't too further after that. Back in the old days when you actually used to rent movies, and man, I thought Jeff Combs and Stuart Gordon and Barbara Crampton were just gonna, and Brian Usna were just gonna take over the world. I remember I was watching, rewatching them this week, and I was just like, both of these films, I had never seen anything like it other than maybe Romero's Day of the Dead with the effects and everything, and just no pun intended, blew me away.
Patrick, when did you first see the Re-Animator and From Beyond?
I think it was in health class. It was an instructional film in my my high school health class. I saw them on video shortly after each was released. So, 86, 87, something like that. And they were more gooder. No, they were terrific. They blew me away. There were a few performances when I was a kid that I saw, and I said, I want to be that person. And Jeffrey Combs, just who has not wanted to be that right with a teacher who's that much of a jackass? Get a job in a sideshow. Yeah, that actually, his portrayal of Herbert West in some ways, I think, was really inspirational to me and sort of formed how I thought an adult should comport themselves, as weird as that sounds. Because Herbert West is the anti-hero of the movie, you can't say that, good things happen because of his efforts. But gosh darn it, yeah. And then, a year later or so, I guess From Beyond came out. And I probably heard about them from Fangoria or people at the Vogue or something like that were talking about them. And I mean, it reminded me of when I saw Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, just in the intense extremity. However, it also reminded me of Return of the Living Dead in its comedy. And, watching it this time, one of the things that I thought about was when I was watching Re-Animator was, yeah, I guess they hadn't made Pet Sematary yet. The book had been written, but that was 89.
Yeah.
But I'll be darned if they didn't borrow a lot from Pet Sematary. The ending of the movie with him reviving the wife figure. So I watched them again. I watched Re-Animator last night. I hadn't seen it in 20 years, more, probably 30. And From Beyond, I hadn't seen since it was first released on video. And I had thoughts on both. And of course, great to see Ken Foray.
I like Herbert West. He's like, when he goes, birth is always painful. It's like when the cat's coming back to life.
That's, there are some performances that are just star making.
Yeah.
Where the actor has such an incredible command over not only the truth of what he's doing, but the fun behind the truth of what he's doing. And boy, Jeffrey Combs in Re-Animator, to be so young, I don't know how young he was. He was in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a confident, funny, wry performance. And the movie matched it. And who doesn't want an office with a full window rubber room attached to it?
Work would be a lot more fun with those.
Me and Butch were sort of talking about this before you came on, and we weren't recording at the time. But Jeffrey Combs, it seemed like he should have been even a bigger star than what he became.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think because he is less of a class clown, and I say that admiringly, because he's less of a class clown than Bruce Campbell, who I love. You know, Bruce is terrific. There's no flies on Bruce, but I think there is still an Oscar nominee performance in a future Coen Brothers movie or something like that in Jeffrey Combs, where critics who've been ignoring him suddenly come out and say, "Oh yes, I've been a fan of Jeffrey Combs for years," and they do that sort of thing. He is just that good. I mean, he's very good at playing Arch, you know, and playing a sense of style and all of that. But there is also just, if you look into his eyes, there is this relaxed, confident sense of truth, and that's what we really want in actors. And I will happily say, I think Jeffrey Combs is one of the best, maybe greatest American actors in the industry right now. And he doesn't get recognized for it, and he doesn't get the opportunity to really flex those muscles. And let's hope he does. Hollywood, get with it. Man, what a Professor Stokes he would make.
I was just saying this to Butch. How did this guy never play the Riddler? You know, I mean, he really would have knocked that role out the park.
It would have been great.
You know, but
so would Nancy Reagan.
Have either of you watched any of the Justice League or Justice League Unlimited animated series?
Yes.
He plays the Question on there, and God, Jeff Combs takes, Herbert West, which could have been, just a over-the-top, ridiculous character, and makes him believable and grounds him. Crawford could have just been this whiny, the Question, which sound, is especially the way he was written in the animated series, could come off as a very annoying or uninteresting character, and he just echoing everything Patrick said, he just brings you in, and you're just like, I have watched so many movies just because I see his name in it.
You understand why the Question gets a girlfriend in that series. You totally do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a role I think he'd be really good at for a villain role, and it's never been done on screen at least, would be the Black Master from the Shadow Pulp, The Black Master. So, I mean, here's this guy who no one knows who he really is. He's sort of a mirror image of the Shadow almost.
Jewel, I not only will I agree with you, I'll just say, you got a phone book around, put it in front of Jeffrey Combs so he can read it. I'll watch. That actually would be a great compliment, to bring him a phone book at a convention and ask him to autograph it, as if this is the sort of thing you would be happy to watch him read the whole thing of.
What did you guys think of Barbara Crampton's performance in Re-Animater? She's also in From Beyond too.
Butch, I'll pass.
Re-Animater, I don't feel like she was called on. She did fine, first of all. No, as Patrick said, no flies on her. She wasn't really called on to do, in my opinion, that much. Thankfully, she wasn't just the damsel in distress. Right. I think you got in my opinion, and I'm probably wrong, I usually am, you got a more accurate example of her range in From Beyond.
Yeah.
Because she shows up, she's got the glasses on, she's very serious, blah, 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 blah. And as the movie progresses, you see the change and see her range.
You realize in From Beyond, she's playing the Jeffrey Combs character.
Yes.
She's playing the character. She's saying the sort of lines that would have been written for Jeffrey Combs. Yeah, Barbara Crampton. Did she ever do soap operas?
She was on some soap opera for a while. That was after these kind of films. She kind of moved over to that.
The scene,
I believe.
The scene right before her father busts in, which is the serious romantic scene, which kind of slows the movie down, is very soap opera-ish. And on one hand, I wonder if they wrote this because they thought, well, it'll fit her range, or if they wrote it and she said, well, I'll do with it what I can. I don't know. I really only have, I know she's done other movies, but I only have those two samples that I've seen. I have really mixed feelings about Barbara Crampton, and this goes someplace that I don't know if we want to go there yet, but I'll sort of sample a little of it. Barbara Crampton, for one thing, what I'm going to say, sort of to echo what Butch said, has nothing to do with her acting. I have always been a little weirded out by the degree to which a lot of fanboys kind of obsessed over Barbara Crampton. Because especially with From Beyond, I feel guilty sometimes watching the nude scenes in those movies because they kind of go beyond gratuitous, where there's and with Re-Animator, you kind of take it, okay, well, that's okay. But then when they kind of repeat the stripping and all this other stuff in From Beyond, I'm the last guy to go, wave a political flag or virtue signal or something like that. But I felt kind of dirty in the wrong way watching that stuff in From Beyond, because I thought, Band Brothers or whoever, do you guys like have a thing for her that you're just kind of like exploiting on the screen? Because it's like once, okay, that's fine. Twice, maybe I'm watching it with 2022 eyes, maybe a little, which is a lot, but it actually, it did make me uncomfortable. I think she's a good actress, and I feel like they almost wrote in purposefully serious stuff, like the soap opera scene I was talking about, or a lot of the science stuff with the glasses and so on, so that then they could say, no, this is a serious dramatic role, when they turned around and kind of really hit the wah-wah pedal a little hard in the sexy stuff with her. I was watching it last night with a friend of mine, and he is Generation Z, good Generation Z. And after the movie, he said, well, Patrick, this wouldn't fly today. And I said, really? He said, yeah, that's a rape scene. And I had never thought of it as a, the scene I'm talking about, as a rape scene. And he was right. And we started to talk about, no pun intended, the issue of taste. And is that scene, does the titillation attempt outweigh the horror element in the story? And if it does, I'm not saying it does, but if it does, that's a creepy thing. And I feel sorry for Barbara Crampton a little bit. I'm not saying that, she was forced into it. I saw the movie with women in their 20s in the 80s, and everyone kind of went, ooh, ah, and kind of, and they kind of, I think, enjoyed it in the way in which the filmmakers intended, probably Barbara Crampton intended. But it is a little weird now. Not the inclusion of sexuality, but a little bit too much breast groping. That stuff goes on just a little longer. I mean, if I had been the actor, but playing the doctor, who is he? The one who gets reanimated. Well, they both do, but not her father, but the other one.
Was it Dr. Hill?
Yeah. Yeah. If I had been the actor playing Dr. Hill, I probably would have, at the very least, asked, and I know I'm monopolizing the conversation, I'm sorry, but I would have asked Barbara Crampton, I would have said, Barbara, are you okay with this? Show me on the doll where you want me to touch. But also, I would have said, Barbara, if you want to go to the director and ask for this maybe to be 5 seconds shorter or whatever, I'm okay with that. And I hadn't really thought about this personally. Patrick, hadn't thought about this a lot until last night when I talked to my friend about it. And his insights, I think, were very good. So that's an unbelievably unnecessarily long answer to what I think about Barbara Crampton.
You know, I felt kind of the same thing what you're talking about from Beyond, all the sex stuff with Pretorius.
Whose outfit was it? Was it Pretorius's or was it Jeffrey Combs's?
And since the first time I saw the film, I thought you were, at least in From Beyond, you were supposed to be uncomfortable with it because she didn't realize that she was under his control and under his influence.
No, here I am being the arbiter of what's okay and what isn't. Man, I sound like a millennial, which I'm not. But that's okay. It's kind of the lingering, literal physical fondling and stuff like that, where at a certain point, and I don't think it's intentional on the part of the filmmakers, I want to look away because I am embarrassed for the character. Now, if I really genuinely thought they were doing that on purpose, I would say, well played. Well played. But I don't. And we cannot judge a 1987, 1986 movie with 2022 standards completely. But we also have to acknowledge that we are watching it now. I'm not saying it should be banned or anything, but I think it's at all. And I think it's worthy of a conversation.
Yeah, in Re-Animator, I totally agree with you. That went on way too long. But like I said, I think in From Beyond, you're supposed to be uncomfortable with it. Your friend's right. That is a rape scene.
I hate myself that I never thought of it that way. And I was like, well, yes, in every sense it is. I just thought of it as a horror scene. Not that rape scenes are not horror scenes, but I thought of it more as horror than rape. But no, it's a rape scene.
I'm going to use a weird analogy.
Okay.
With Re-Animator. Remember in House of Dark Shadows when Barnabas is trying to make Maggie his bride and she's wearing the white dress?
Yeah, that, but yes.
Well, right. Okay, with Hill being dead and minus a head, instead of her just stripping her clothes off, why not put her in a wedding dress and make her your undead bride? Kill her and bring her back to life instead of.
I don't think
because they do it. They do it at the end of the movie anyway. So why not have Hill do it as sort of a villain, or try to do it as a villain move? But that's where Combs' character comes in and sort of they try to save the day, try to save her.
I like that idea. And they also worked really hard to make him an obsessed, dirty old man.
Yeah.
And that, an obsessed, dirty old man is not that I would know anything about that. But all seriousness aside, his mind was a few hours later on the wedding day, so to speak.
I think the difference too with Re-Animator, with the scene there and From Beyond, there's an emphasis that the guy is impotent. He can't get it up. He has women over just to torture them. It's not so much about the sex.
I know he has the women over to torture them, but I didn't know that.
Well, Combs' character in From Beyond sort of says about it that he's impotent. And I take it away, well, wait, he can't get an erection? I'm like, okay.
Jeffrey Combs keeps walking in the room. Maybe it's only like Jeff. It's like the invisible kid in Mystery Men. He's only invisible if people aren't looking. Well, yes, I'm impotent when you barge in. That's called a normal reaction, Jeff.
But he does. Combs says, she'll know your secret that you can't make love. So yeah, I took the same thing Joel did. He could only get in the mood, so to speak, with a little bit of suffering and a little bit of pain, maybe a lot bit. Because I mean, you looking at that closet and everything in that room. I mean, that's not a pair of handcuffs a couple buys on the weekend. I mean, that man's put some money into that stuff.
You know what? It reminded me of Dudley Moore's room in Foul Play. Remember when my grandparents took me to see that, like on my first day of second grade, because they had seen me coming out of China syndrome or something, and they thought, oh God, he shouldn't be seeing that, and so they thought, oh look, a Goldie Hawn movie, thinking it was going to be Butterflies Are Free or something, and suddenly, I'm there at age 7, permanently warped.
Just as you said that, the scene from Murder by Death with, I forget the actress's name, but she's playing David Niven's wife, and he's explaining about necrophilia, and she's like, oh, that's tacky.
Which I thought I was 5. Good God, what happened to me? Well, it's clear.
I think we know.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference there too with the I think Re-Animator's naked Barbara Crampton is more of a senseless scene, where From Beyond she starts off sort of like you guys said, like Herbert West is like from Re-Animator a bit, and she's going through this change because they don't realize this guy's controlling them. Both of them really are, and that's really a great storytelling. But then you realize, well, this guy, he's impotent, but he beats these women. It's not so much about the sex, it's about the torture of the act.
Power,
yeah. And I think that's the biggest difference. I'm not saying that's right. It's definitely not. But I think that's I sort of more forgive From Beyond than I do Re-Animator, because Re-Animator seems like, why are you stripping this girl's clothes off if you're maybe thinking about killing her or just making her like you? You know what I mean? That just was senseless to me.
Nope. Well, I guess pun intended, titillation.
I mean, it did add to the medical specimen kind of corpsiness of it. I think one of the ways that they justify and get away with it is that there's so much subsequent nudity as the scene develops with the corpses, who are, dressed like corpses in glad, and there's a lot. There's also there is one thing I will also say about the nudity in that I think is, pardon the phrase, pretty chicken shit, and it is constantly strategically hiding the winkus of the whatever the one guy corpse is who's kind of running around, and it's like there's always it's like Austin Powers, there's always an elbow in the way or something like that. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm eating my popcorn and waiting for the phantom phallus to appear. It hits the phantom phallus, Charlie Brown, but at the same time, I really hate that game. That's talk about sexist. That's just, if you're being frank about these things, why not be Dean or Sammy? But seriously, if you're being frank about these things, just do it. But it's the MPAA, because they go nuts at the sight of such a thing, and like Re-Animator's really that concerned. In fact, I think Re-Animator was released unrated. I'm not certain. I'm kind of, because in Louisville it was hard to find in a movie theater. I don't even know if it played in a movie theater, but it didn't get advertised, and I think it was because it was either unrated or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, down here you could in the Knoxville area, I can remember circa 1980 hearing radio ads for Dawn of the Dead. It was a midnight showing. And there was also a showing of Rocky Horror Picture Show. Showing me that I grew up a little too late, because there's 2 great films to go see in a midnight movie. But I can remember them having at least radio ads. And of course, you never saw anything on TV.
And you never saw anything in a radio ad.
Got it.
But keep going, Butch.
I was going to mention that I know that there's a couple of posters for Dawn of the Dead, and I have a repro that there are no sex scenes in this film. However, there's graphic violence and special effects, and this film is unrated. Blah blah blah. I got a question I want to ask both of you. I'm going to play Joel for just a second. could see if these films were made 20 years earlier, or the actor I'm about to mention was born 20 years later. Could you see Peter Cushing playing both of these roles?
Wow, that's a yes, but Cushing is too good at not winking at the audience with ludicrous dialogue. They would have been much more serious movies. Because even with the same dialogue, I can see Peter Cushing giving the "get a job in a sideshow" line, and it would be deadly serious. Get a job in a sideshow, you know. Sure. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Who else would have made a good Herbert West 20 years earlier, 30 years earlier?
Easily Donald Pleasance.
Literally, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
His son's name Kiefer, Donald Sutherland.
Yeah.
He would have made a good Crawford Tillinghast in From Beyond, I think, because he doesn't have to play. Maybe not. He's not the macho guy, but he's Herbert West is man. There is someone that has the highest score possible in belief in himself and right in his sincerity. So, but at Crawford is kind of broken through most of the film, and looking at Donald Pleasance in Animal House as the teacher, that gets his that he could have done that part, I think, really good.
You know who I would have enjoyed seeing in, as Herbert West, or then as Pretorius, the other guy in From Beyond. It's going to be a weird one. Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that would be amazing.
Just that really totally sincere intensity.
Definitely is Pretorius.
I'll give you another one. If he would have been born sooner, would have been Dean Stockwell.
And again, get a phone book.
Yeah. To answer your question about Peter Cushing, I'll do you one better. If I could have seen Re-Animator being made by Hammer, like if Re-Animator would have been made in the 70s, I could have seen it being made by Hammer. I mean, they made bloody movies. I mean, I could have seen them pushing the envelope with this movie.
And didn't Hammer do a Lovecraft movie? Didn't they do like the Dunwich Horror or something like that? I feel like they did. I feel like there is a
Dunwich Horror with Dean Stockwell, but I don't think Hammer.
Oh, that was Corman who did that. Yeah, it was that one-off. That's a worthy subject for a video. It's just the early Lovecraft movies before the Lovecraft craze.
Yeah.
Because I think did this kind of start the Lovecraft revival craze, or certainly
I think
in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, I had, until I saw these movies. Please don't tell David Mitchell I said this. But until I saw Re-Animator From Beyond, I had no idea who H.P. Lovecraft was. I'd heard of him. I knew he was held in high regard, but I was more of an Edgar Allan Poe fan. And then when I started collecting all the Vincent Price, Roger Corman films on VHS, and finding out that Haunted Palace is actually a Lovecraft film, I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's something to this guy. I need to check him out.
Yeah, what is Haunted Palace based on? Which one is that? Because I used to know this stuff, but then my head dark shit.
The Strange Charles Dexter Ward.
Yeah, okay, that's a good movie.
Yes, it is.
How great was it that Jeffrey Combs, he plays Herbert West, but he plays a completely different character from Beyond, and he nails this.
It was. So just as I feel like they were maybe not doing right by Barbara Crampton a little bit, they were doing really right by Jeffrey Combs by allowing him to show that vulnerability and range.
Yeah.
I remember seeing these two films and thinking, wow, this Jeff Combs, Barbara Crampton, Stuart Gordon, Brian Houston. I mean, these guys. Here we go. This is the next new big thing, and not that any of them did bad, but I guess I expected more from all of them. I mean, Jeff Combs is still working. I don't know if Barbara is, and of course, Stuart's passed on.
To touch on last week, I have had similar conversations about, of all the people to come out of the Roger Corman kind of factory or go through the Roger Corman factory, it was so many great filmmakers, Ron Howard, Scorsese, Coppola. Why did Jack Hill not get that kind of studio shot? And the answer that friends of mine have had, and I believe them, and this is true then for Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, and the people who made Re-Animater. I'm going to say something controversial, and you have to go with me on it, because I don't think these movies are crap, but they are kind of bubblegum horror exploitation fun movies. From Beyond, much less. It's more serious, straight-faced movie. But there are some people who are so good at making questionable material believable and making that really wacky clock work that, straight actors would just be lost with. They'd just be boring with, or you could see their contempt as they would do it. Just like Jack Hill was so good at taking unlikely exploitation movie subject matter and making real movies out of them. Jeffrey Combs is too good at taking, a guy with blue skin and antenna and making him a believable three-dimensional character with pathos and so on. And I think they got pigeonholed because they were too good at making this wacky material work. And so people thought, well, let's just keep giving them wacky material. Yeah. Same thing happened to Bruce Campbell. And Campbell talks about that. Campbell talks about how Congo was going to be his shot to actual legitimate movie stardom, which he deserves. And everyone just thought, oh, he's the funny guy.
Yeah, I was watching The Tingler on Svengoolie earlier tonight. And if you've ever seen The Tingler, it's just a ridiculous plot. But man, Vincent Price he starts talking, and you're like, okay, yeah, there's something in me that'll crush my spine if I don't scream. Even sitting there knowing this is one of the stupidest ideas ever, he does it well. The script is written well, and it moves at a brisk pace, and it's just like, okay, sit back and entertain me.
Here's the tragedy of Vincent Price. We had to wait until he was, like 130 when he did The Whales of August for him to get just a good, straight movie role that he really just got to sit down and act. And not that he didn't in the other films, but gosh, it would have been nice. And I can say the same for Karloff. Hell, I say the same for Lugosi. That they never, or almost never, like Targets or something.
I was going to mention.
Yeah, got to just act. And man, if you watch Targets, or that's the Bogdanovich picture, right? Yeah, if you watch Targets or Whales of August or something, these people are just magnificent actors. I mean, really, genuinely, goddamn good. And I hate the fact that Hollywood said, "Okay, pick one." No, don't worry, we'll pick it for you here. This is all you're ever going to get to do for the most part, and that makes me sad. And I think we should be mad about it.
We should. Whales of August is my wife's favorite Vincent Price picture. We went through them, and she's like, "Wow, he's really good." I was like, "Yeah, I've been telling people this for decades."
He's good in everything, but it's always with Bonavia or something like that. And here, he just gets a script, And Lillian Gish, man, who can't be good opposite her?
I'm not taking anything away from Charlton Heston in the movie, but if you really want to watch Vincent Price too, The Ten Commandments.
Baka. I'm
He-
a master builder, master butcher, you mean?
Yeah, he does a really good job. I mean, it's not a horror role. And I think a lot of people need to go watch that movie with him, Charlton Heston. You know, it's just really, really good.
Haven't we talked about that movie recently a little bit?
Yeah, but
maybe do one on the Ten Commandments. I love that movie. My mentor, Carl, when I was growing up and ran the movie theater I used to work at, maintained the Ten Commandments. He had a really interesting review of it. He said this, we saw the 89 re-release. I played hooky and went to see that when it came out. And he said, this is the most fun movie ever made. Not a movie to be ridiculed or anything, but it's just full of there's John Derek swinging down to rescue somebody. I mean, Joshua the action slave. It's just fun. It is so arch in its sincerity, but it's nevertheless still sincere. I love that movie.
It's such a spectacle. If anybody's watching this and goes and watch Ten Commandments, realize this is before CGI. So when you see all these Jews, Jewish people leaving Egypt, that's real people. That's real horses. When you see them building the pyramids and such, those are all real people.
I'll tell you, one of the interesting stories about the making of Ten Commandments is that Elmer Bernstein, who the Exodus music, bum 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 bum, this triumphant kind of, that was not the first piece of music he wrote for that scene. He wrote a very traditional kind of cantor like da na na na, that sound,
yeah.
And it was very heavy. And apparently the scene lasted for about 38 years. It was almost unwatchably endless. DeMille, from what I understand, Mr. DeMille didn't change anything. He didn't recut it. But Bernstein went back and said, Mr. DeMille, I think I can fix this. It takes balls to say I can fix the Exodus. But it's a Winnebago. But no, seriously, I think this, and he wrote this like one of the most rousing Indiana Jones triumphant marches ever, and that scene flies by. What a just another of the 1,008,010 great things about that movie.
Really an amazing. It's a perfect movie. Really, I mean, there's no flaws in it. It's really great acting, great writing. Great effects.
If it had been made a few years later by Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, you would have had Sean Connery as Moses. The opening credits would have had dancing women with commandments projected on them. Bernard Lee would have been the voice of the burning bush, sort of giving Moses his mission. To liberate his people, and then you would have had a scene with Desmond Llewellyn giving him the staff. Saying, all right, Moses, now pay attention.
This only need to turn into a snake.
Yeah, this can part the Red Seas, turn the Nile into blood. Oh, it also becomes a snake. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're left with, and I have to do it. Let my people go.
You have a bald villain.
You do.
You have Ramfinger. Oh God. Yeah. Ramses is and then the chariot has a button that parts the Red Seas or something like that. Yeah, the big chariot race. Well, no, that's the other Heston movie. Heston
pull that out. Yeah.
Well, the Red Sea, when the Red Sea parts, they do ride chariots.
Suddenly he's Ben-Hur, and he's just going to ride through the damn thing and get it over with. The other I can't remember what I was going to say. It's not important. I just the fatuous gas bag git that I am.
The one thing I find really curious too with both films is how with the characters, the other guy, not Herbert West, but the other guy who's the doctor, he goes to the dean. He's like, West is doing all this stuff, and the dean's like, he doesn't care. And I was just like, what?
Oh, yeah, I can't believe you bring this stuff to me. Well, because it does sound like, he had too much to drink or something. You should see what he did. Because it sounds like a magic trick. He brought a cat back to life. It's horrible. It's my cat. I love I would do too. And he looks like Robert Mandan on Soap. Doesn't he? He's got the suit and everything. This week on Soap, the reagent formula gets into the hands of Jody, and they inject it into the puppet.
Oh, gives me the cue to bring out the prop, the highlighter that came with the Re-Animator box set. That is shaped. It looks liquidy. No, I think it used to glow like 10 years ago.
But then it was gone.
The magic is gone.
Well, there's a thing too where Barbara, you notice when Barbara Crampton's characters interacted with Hill and her dad's like wrapped in a straitjacket, that's when you sort of can tell Hill has something for her too. Like he's just like,
oh yeah,
Hill right there sort of is tipping his hand like, there's issues here, and I love that little scene too between them. Like you tell Hill's. I won't say you can tell he's a heel right there in that moment, but there's something to him, and then you find out later on what happens, obviously. But with
Speaking of Hill, who would you have cast Robert Preston as in this movie? Just from out of nowhere. But I think Hill, because this would have been Victor Victoria, Last Starfighter era.
The 80s.
Gosh, I wouldn't cast him as Hill. I really wouldn't.
He would be great. He really would have been great.
He would have, but I really I can't think of the actor's name. I liked him as Hill. I mean, he plays a good bad guy in this film, and a good, especially in a horror movie, when you're dealing with a villain and a kind of like Patrick said, non-heroic protagonist. You've got to have a strong villain. You got to have somebody if the audience goes boo, hiss. You his comeuppance.
That's a really good point, and it's a reason to appreciate his performance all the more because he's got to go up against Jeffrey Combs.
Your only saving grace is Jeff is only about 25 at the time.
I just thought about somebody. I would have cast Ben Cross.
Ben would have been great.
He was my choice to play a young Grand Moff Tarkin in the Star Wars prequels.
That would have been good. That would have been really good.
Yes. Very, very nice. Here's a question for you guys, and it's sort of off topic. I just watched Halloween Ends here yesterday.
Yeah, you didn't like it very much.
So, I'm sorry.
No.
So that tells you also.
Who would you, in a Halloween movie, cast as Michael Myers?
Well, Joel, that's a stuntman. Yeah. A little bit, but it's a guy who just sort of walks around, wears a mask. The Unknown Comic. I don't know. Butch, who would you cast?
Stop you right there. Kane Hodder. And pause. And I was thinking about this today. For my birthday, I got the complete Crystal Lake Memories book, and I've been reading through it. And there's something in number 7, the one with the telekinetic girl, the New Blood. Yeah. And they mentioned in the book, and as soon as I read it, I'm like, I knew it, I realized it, but this had just kind of put it into words, if you will. Pretty much the 6 movies before, Jason didn't really have a personality. But the minute Kane Hodder takes over, Jason has some personality. And it's not like, he's Freddy Krueger going, ha, 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 welcome to prime time. But you see that there's more to him than just stabby stab.
Then I will meet you on that field. With an actor whose name I should know and I can't remember, but it's the guy who played Gollum
Oh, Andy Serkis.
Yeah, if he doesn't take the mask off, or if it is, you know, a 20 years older Michael Myers, so he's in his 60s. Talk about an actor whose bread and butter largely is in physical performance.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, I mean, he's not tall, but that can be, I mean, we saw what they did with, you know, Lord of the Rings with forced perspective and so on. And just good old fashioned, you know, Photoshop and stuff. Yeah, I think, you know, if you're going to have an actor who's largely physical, and he's like the best pantomime actor there is, or Bill Irwin or someone like that, whose training, everything is about rendering these performances without words. I mean, you know, look at, you know, King Kong, what a dreadful, the Peter Jackson thing, you know, what a lousy movie, but Andy Serkis's performance is right on the money.
Yeah. I keep going back to something John Carpenter said about Nick Castle. He loved the way he walked. And when you watch the original, you see how Nick is sort of like this ghost as Michael Myers. And I would cast Hayden Christensen to don the mask. I mean, he did a really good job walking. When you watch, you know, episode 3, when he's walking as Anakin Skywalker, I kept seeing the coveralls, the mask. I kept seeing Michael Myers.
You were just trying to make it a better movie. In your mind, like let's make him Michael Myers. God, that would have been so great in Revenge of the Sith. Michael Myers is in there with the you know, like a kitchen knife.
Standing there watching the Death Star being built, Vader goes.
And you could have still had the breathing effect too. Yeah. Palpatine would have had to do all the talking too. That would have been beautiful.
The gravestone, you know, Padme Skywalker.
Yes. Oh my god.
But perhaps he has a sister. Yeah, you know.
And From Beyond too, they're treating them as all insane. Barbara Crampton's character too. And I think that's what makes both movies good too, both Re-Animator and From Beyond. You're dealing with, here's a guy who can bring things back to life. And in From Beyond, it's literally about this whole other realm of creatures and this whole other realm itself. And I think even though they have similar, you know, the actors from both movies, they're playing different parts, which is really, I think that's what makes the movies so good too. They're not boring. They're entertaining. Oh. They're well written.
They are amazingly well paced.
Yep.
I know From Beyond was made by Empire. Was Re-Animator also made by Empire? Or released by whatever the proper term would be?
I don't know.
I'm not sure either.
I after seeing that, I think it was, but I'm not going to say it was. Remember after watching From Beyond and seeing like dolls and maybe even trancers, you know, I made up a superhero team that I wanted to come up with. It was called Team Empire, and it was Barbara Crampton's character. She was kind of the gruff, what would be like the gruff Nick Fury character now. You know, she's been in the insane asylum. Her leg's all messed up. She walks on a cane, and she hires, you know, the various other characters that live through the Empire films. They come together to fight evil.
Yeah. So who else is on Team Empire?
Yeah, well,
like Jack Death or
Jack Death, Dollman. Probably a line about, you know, maybe if Re-Animator's in here, Herbert West, and somebody looks at Dollman, somebody looks at Herbert West and go, "Are y'all related?"
Sure. Well, then who is it? What, Mordo or Mordred or Dr. Mordred, or which I never saw. How was it?
It is so obviously intended to be Doctor Strange, which it was, and they
Yeah.
couldn't. Jeff Combs would have been an amazing Doctor Strange. Yet another lost opportunity. I mean, I'm not hating on Benedict Cumberbatch. I enjoy him, but if Doctor Strange had been made, well, after Peter Hoven or Hoven, however you say his name,
That's the real Doctor Strange, Val. He's the Nicholas Hammond of Doctor Strange's.
I right after Captain America 2 came out, Jill at my old place, Jill came over and I said, "Okay, we're going to watch the second Captain America movie." Well, I put the what is it, the Dreams
Reb
of
Brown.
Yeah, with Christopher Lee, Sir Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What is this crap?" And I explained it to her. "Oh, this is the second Captain America movie from the TV." And I think they had a budget of about 35 cents.
They spent it on the motorcycle.
And that amazing shield.
You know, I'll tell you, conceptually, I really like that shield. That the white part's clear and it becomes the front of the motorcycle. There's something kind of cool about that. It's badly executed, but it's a cool idea.
You talk about missed opportunity. Ralph Fiennes should have been James Bond.
Oh, there's so many great potential James Bonds. All right, so who's on the list of people who should have played James Bond other than Avery Schreiber? You mentioned one already, Ben Cross.
Ben Cross.
Ben Cross. Well, here's the thing. I seriously think when Ben Cross was playing Barnabas in the 91 revival, that was his audition for James Bond, I think. He never got.
Yeah, I can buy that. There's an actor I really like who was really, really, really up for the part around the Dalton era, and they, of course, made the right choice. Simon McCorkindale, who is one of those. He was Manimal.
And I was trying to place it. I knew I recognized it.
Yeah, Simon McCorkindale. I really like him. He was a great actor, and so he would have been one. Okay, so now what about instead of what's his face, Daniel Craig?
Oh god.
Because I got two. Obviously Hugh Jackman. Sure. I think Hugh Jackman would have been a lot of fun in the part. It would have been, a little Roger Moore-like, but that's okay. It would have been a good blend of, I think, Timothy Dalton and Roger Moore. But the other that when I saw the movie Closer and I saw Clive Owen.
Clive Owen has been my choice for a long time.
I thought, man, and the other, Jason Isaacs.
Yeah, Jason Isaacs would have been good.
Think of him in The Patriot, because that would have been around that era.
What about Mel Gibson?
Yeah, this is my problem with Mel Gibson, and it should be my problem with Hugh Jackman also. Is that he is so associated with being Mel Gibson that I think that Gibsonianness would have overcome everything else. All the other actors to play Bond, even though they did have prior careers, either it was practicing to be James Bond, which is what Pierce Brosnan had been doing for years, or they were so obscure that you could just kind of say, okay, here's the new James Bond. And you didn't have a lot of baggage to bring with it.
I still say, God, we're totally getting off track, and I apologize. Timothy Dalton, for me, arguably could have been the best. He just seemed like a code bastard. That as Dame Judi Dench says, "You're a blunt instrument we send out to kill people." He just had some really lackluster scripts, in my opinion.
Okay, so separate the sort of the sin from the sinner. I think that Timothy Dalton, for me, is the best James Bond, especially if you look at the books. He doesn't have necessarily the best James Bond scripts.
No.
But I'm able to separate the two.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not hating on Pierce Brosnan, but I would have loved to have seen Timothy Dalton do GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Have you read The Lost Adventures of James Bond? I think that's the title of the book. I was just reading it the other day. It's about all of the different potential scripts they had to follow up License to Kill.
Mm.
And it's really wacky. I mean, you get the full plot descriptions and, you know, everything that, you know, could have been with Timothy Dalton. It's a good book. So From Beyond, anyway, I don't know.
Yeah. From Beyond, I like how Barbara Crampton has an assistant. And he really cares about her. They have this great chemistry. I like how he makes her look in the mirror. Who are you?
Oh, the great Ken Foray.
Yep, Ken Foray.
That's more than an assistant. She's got a star.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, again, hell, I watched The Last Precinct for Ken Foray and Adam West. That guy, again, like Jeffrey Combs. What an amazing, awesome actor. I remember at this convention Wallace and I went to, Monster something, I don't know, it was something in North Carolina a couple of years ago. And our table was across from Ken Foray. And he projected such an amazing sense of cool that I immediately had to hide my Caviar Ultra Goliath. So I just felt ashamed. I felt like a goofy fanboy, you know, having him. I just hit him. I couldn't see anything for the entire convention. Oddly enough, Jeffrey Combs was a few tables down, but it's true. But God, Ken Foray looked miserable. And Butch, in terms of Ken Foray, what was... Do you know what his acting? I'm sure you do. What was his acting pedigree? I mean, what had he done? Not in terms of movies, but sort of where did George find him?
I honestly can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up.
But he was a real actor. He wasn't like a stunt man or that they shoehorned into the part.
He did some acting, and I believe he was friends with or friends of a friend of Dwayne Jones, who played Ben in Night. And that, if I'm remembering right, that's how he got his foot in the door, so to speak. And I'm going to top you. I used to watch Hell for Ken Foray. And I don't know if you know what that show is. It's got Kenan Thompson, and it's him and his wacky buddy getting into these ridiculous things. And Ken's in like 2 episodes a season, but it's like, okay, is Ken in this one? Yes! He played one of the fathers. Remember which one?
Yeah, but what was the show? I didn't get the title. What was the show?
Kenan.
Say that again.
One more time. Kenan and Kel.
Kenan and Kel. For some reason, the mic kept cutting out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of it's a kid's show. It was on, I believe. But, you know, here's Ken. I mean, I had a collection on VHS of episodes of stuff he was in. He's in an episode of Hunter. He was in an episode of The Flash, the one with John Wesley Shipp.
Yeah, the real one.
And
which I mean,
some other TV. He might have been in Knight Rider, but he was also. I had him. I remember one day I was homesick, and I just happened to turn on TV, and thankfully my tape was close by. He was on an episode of Divorce Court, playing the soon-to-be divorced husband, and I was like, gotta get that in there. And man, it was really good, of course, because it's Ken Foray.
He's a tremendous actor. You know, to me, the sense of truth that those 4 main actors in Dawn of the Dead, I know it's a subject you don't like to talk about, Butch, I'm sorry. The 4 main actors in Dawn of the Dead bring to the movie, no slight to Tom Savini. That's the best special effect in the film, is the ensemble. That's what, as much as anything, makes that movie really work.
Ken Foray and Scott Reiniger. I mean, there's Batman and Robin, or Batman and Superman. Take your choice. And the funny thing, Galen Ross does a good job. I mean, her character's progression, and David Emge, Flyboy. What's funny is he's the only one that has any military training. He was in Vietnam, and the other 2 have never been around guns. And he has to act like, you know, how do you hold this? Where's the trigger on this crazy thing?
Flyboy, really? He was a Vietnam vet. Good for him.
Yes, sir.
Good for him.
Stop me, Joel. Patrick's trying to draw me off topic again.
It's all connected.
You're allowed. It's this podcast. It's all good. You guys know the host. It's all good. I don't care if we get off topic.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Yeah.
Which one?
That
Who?
one. Joel, what is your favorite scene in From Beyond and your favorite scene from Re-Animator?
Okay, From Beyond, when you actually get to see, because watch these two films in this order. Watch Re-Animator and then watch From Beyond. Because I think when you see the switch from where Jeffrey Combs plays a mad scientist who's got swagger to scared, my favorite scene is just the fact of the switch of the cast. Barbara Crampton playing the scientist. I know that sounds corny, but it's really, really good to see that range in acting for both. From where Barbara Crampton's, she's like you said, she's not a damsel in Re-Animator, but she's in Re-Animator. It seems like she's trying to, I don't want to say try too hard, but she's sort of a character who's speaking, but it's fallen on deaf ears. Whereas in From Beyond, she is speaking and people are listening. She's a more serious character. And to see that switch is my favorite part of both films. To see the difference. That's something I love with both films. I don't mind the gore because I've seen gorier films. The nudity, again, in Re-Animator, I think instead of just stripping her clothes off and having the head go down on her, you could have had her put in a literal wedding dress and just, I'm going to kill you, my dear, and you're going to be my bride. You could have had that moment instead of just stripping her all clothes off and doing that nonsense. I think in From Beyond, it's better done because you have more of a storied plot where the guy's impotent and he tortures the women. So again, I just love the movies as they are. But I guess if I had to pick one specific scene, the mirror scene where he's shown in From Beyond where he has Barbara Crampton. Who are you? I think that's so chill.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Ken Fiar. And for Re-Animator, as corny as it's at the beginning, I gave him life. I think that's it's so good. But what's you guys' favorite scene in these movies?
Butch? What do you got?
Wow, I don't even know if I can pick one. Oh geez. I love it because to me it's in From Beyond we see Barbara Crampton's character start, as the scientist and oh I'm so smart, and she gets totally out of her league, and then she gets kind of possessed, and then because if you notice, I mean basically she has three outfits. She has the what I call the scientist outfit, then she has what she wears that she gets from Pretorius. And then at the end, she's wearing a pair of jeans and a red sweater. And it's when Crawford chains her up and he's like trying to start, because I love you. And she chews on his pineal gland. There's just something about that is so visceral. And it has a double entendre that I think Patrick just caught on too. It's like, you've taken someone from this high rarefied air and, if you will, brought them down to earth, and she accepts it, and she's like, okay, this is how I'm going to get out of here. Yeah. And kind of becomes an action chick right after that. But just the implications from that scene and what she's doing, you could almost kind of see it as an inverse of the infamous scene in Re-Animator. Re-Animator favorite scene. I don't know if it's scene, but my favorite line is the one that Patrick said earlier. Who's going to believe a talking head? Get a job in a side. He says that. So, I mean, there's some movies that have a character. Humphrey Bogart was really good at doing it. He'd say something. Yarda Wiener, she's old enough, and it just kind of said. nonchalant without being nonchalant. And that's what that is. I mean, Herbert West is just so sure of himself. And, that's what happened.
If you're not nonchalant, are you chalant?
I guess you are.
You're very chalant.
One other thing for a switch over to you. They kept talking about remaking Gilligan's Island. Jeffrey Combs is the professor.
I was thinking Campbell is the professor, but Jeffrey Combs even better. Sorry, Bruce. We love you too. We'll go. But
we do, Bruce.
But you know who Jeffrey Combs or who? Well, you can have either Bruce or Jeffrey, but have Bruce as Thurston Howell.
I was just thinking that. Lovey, where are you?
Seriously, I mean, it's because he's a comic actor. Let him just go. Give him just a strictly comical part and see what he does. God, Bruce Campbell is Thurston Howell. Sign me up.
I would do this if I were the director. Okay, Bruce, we're going to do like a straight take. I mean, yes, we're going to have the comedy lines and whatnot, but we want to do one with the script, and then we're going to do a one or two where you can just riff.
Well, that's what they did with Jim Backus. Backus, yeah, he was one of the only actors on Gilligan's Island who they couldn't stop from ad-libbing.
And he was good at it. Anyway, your favorite scenes.
Yeah.
I got to talk about this Brent Spiner book. Anyway, I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay.
But before that, favorite scenes. In From Beyond, Ken Foray's, it's a brief little piece of dialogue, but where he calls her a junkie.
Yeah.
He compares what she is to the behavior of a drug addict. And there's just something about what Barbara Crampton has done to justify that leading up to it. And Foray's treatment of that, I think, is just a really, 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 it's a little moment, but it's a fine moment. And I think rather than talk about favorite scenes, I'd rather just talk about a moment that really stands out to me. In Re-Animater, any line Jeffrey Combs has, but the funniest moment, really the most human, appropriate moment where you have something profoundly funny that is totally justified in the situation, and that's the when he's trying to get Hill's head to sit upright, and he looks at the thing with the spike and takes off the notes and pop. That's a moment that is not realistic, but it's true. And that's what you go for in art. You don't necessarily go for realism because that real life is boring. That's why we have art. But you do try and find truth. And you just go, yep, that's how you do it.
Very nice.
So this Brent Spiner book, before we go, not that I'm signing off your show, Jewel. Sorry I did commandeer it. Have you heard about it? I think it's called fanfic or fan fiction. Well, Brent Spiner has written a fictitious sort of autobiography. Mysteries takes place during the making of Next Generation. And it begins when a deranged fan sends him threatening mail, including a severed pig phallus that LeVar Burton, I think, is able to identify immediately. And Brent really wonders how LeVar knows. It's really funny. There's a Gregory Peck scene that steals the book. Seriously, it's really, really, really funny for fans of that school of acting, because I really put Jeffrey Combs and Bruce Campbell and all that in with the Next Generation cast because they're all a bunch of knuckleheads. It's really good. And the audio book is even better because you've got Jonathan Frakes voicing Jonathan Frakes, and you got LeVar voicing LeVar, and it's, gosh darn it. Just as a side note, read this thing. Listen to the audiobook especially.
I will segue that for you. If Joel can take this out of order and put it in if he wants. Jeffrey Combs was up for the role of Will Riker, and apparently got pretty far into it, but ultimately lost to Frakes. And every time, I'll think, what would his Riker have been like? You know, I mean, because Frakes played his version, and this, what would Combs's version of Commander Riker been like?
It would have been terrific. I think Combs was also up for Captain Archer.
He was, and
as Bruce Campbell.
Ever since you've suggested it, Bruce Campbell would be my choice to lead a Star Trek TV show.
Well, even though he didn't get Star Trek, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. was really good.
A great series. Well, another one that I don't think gets its due, but is pure comedy, is Jack of All Trades.
Well, trades, yeah.
Which is have you seen that, Jewel?
No, I've never seen it.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
You should watch.
Is there a streaming service I could watch it, or where?
Probably not.
I don't know, but it probably rhymes with YouTube. Here's the secret. Just go to YouTube, type in S1E1 and see the amazing things YouTube has to offer that you don't know are on there. Like, not involving something naughty, but just something that, doesn't get to us because of the powers that are. I guess the only way I can really see Wild Wild West is YouTube.
Really? That's not. I can't believe that's not streaming.
It's like one super obscure streaming service, and that's it. The same thing with Sanford and Son, which I think maybe you can buy on Amazon, but in terms of being part of streaming packages, I can't find it. And Sanford and Son and Wild West are the two shows that I really want to get.
I saw, the thing of it is, though, I saw Wild Wild West really on DVD not at a local Walmart, but one of the bigger Walmarts that I go to. So
I have it on DVD, but that requires getting up and crossing the room.
So I was telling Joel, I had both my DVDs and I took them upstairs, and I thought, well, I'm sitting there in my chair being extremely lazy, and I'm like searching on Roku. I'm like, oh, look, it's on Tubi. Well, that's on. Okay. And, my wife Jill's like, why do you bring the movies up if you're just going to watch them on a streaming service? I'm like, to remind me I have a prop for Jewel.
It's absolutely true.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, the goddamn host of this podcast is too lazy to bring props. That son of a bitch. And
well, do you want to talk to us some more? You're a lovely man. Don't say these things about you.
If I have to sit here and vent about myself, damn it, I will. But no, oh my God, no, guys. It's been fun. It really has.
Really good one. I've had fun with this.
Yeah. After this week, I really I was been so looking forward to this. You two guys, and having some laughs and talking about this stuff, and I appreciate both of you being here. And thank you.
We'll do the Void, Nick. We'll do the Void Saturday, guys. If anything comes up, please let me know. But we will definitely do the Void.
I will say this about the Void. When I meet people who are horror fans who say, oh, I'm a horror fan, and they want to watch a movie, I always say, have you seen the Void? No.
I'm gonna watch it tomorrow. So
wow. Disturbing film on so many levels. I can't wait for the discussion. It's really a good movie.
I will definitely check it out. For Butch RosenBalm, Patrick McCray, the only two mad scientists I welcome on a podcast. These gentlemen are amazing. Go check out Patrick on Twitter. He's at the real McCray. Butch, Patrick, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. This was a blast. Guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Please do.
Thanks, Joel. You too.
You guys take care. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.